Hi everyone, I'm Anne-Marie from Brambleberry.com, and I'm here to tell you today a little bit about melt and pour soap. So this is a lot of technique, a lot of information, and a little bit of project. So if you're just here for the project and you're like, all I would like to do is learn how to make these, skip to the end. But if you'd like to know a little bit more about the science and the why you choose melt and pour bases, what they're good for, stick around. If you're new here, what is melt and pour? Let me tell you. So all soap that is true soap undergoes a saponification reaction, meaning you mix oils, you mix lye with water, it turns into soap. Melt and pour soap, however, undergoes a secondary step with heat, alcohol being added, which is not present in the final product, and extra liquid glycerin. What this does is it makes the soap, one, clear, or you can add titanium dioxide to get it white, and it makes it easily remeltable in the microwave or in a double boiler. This is especially good if you're making projects that need a quick release, you need to sell them or give them away that weekend, or if you're making soap with kids. It also gives you different design options than making soap with cold process soap does. And so is this soap? Yes, it is soap. So you could actually just peel this entire thing and just use this as soap. So it is soap, as is. So melt and pour soap is really easy. You literally just chop it up, put it in the microwave or a double boiler, it turns into liquid, you add your fragrance, you add your colorants, you pour it into a mold, you wait 4 hours, and it's ready to pop out and use right away. Again, no lye, kind of no mess, no fuss. It's really easy to make soap option. And we have lots of melt and pour soap making videos right here on this channel. So Brambleberry carries at this very moment in time 13 bases, and you might be like, why do you carry 13 bases and how do I know which one to choose? So first things first, what's your design? Do you want a clear soap or do you want a white soap? White soap makes pastel colors. You will never get a bright red, for example, or a black if you are trying to start with a white soap. Or do you want really bright, playful colors? You start with a clear soap. If you want a mix of them, kind of like we've got here, you can mix up both. Two, what sort of functional ingredients do you want? Like we have goat's milk soaps, for example, that really have that beautiful lactic acid of the goat milk in the soap. Or we have like hemp oil soap, like the hemp oil soap, which is this one. You can see it has a lot of natural unrefined hemp in it. That is why it has this color. Olive oil soap, especially gentle and cleansing on beautiful skin. So it really depends on kind of what functional ingredients you're looking for. And then finally, what sort of marketing claims are you trying to make? Do you want to be able to call out that your soap, for example, has oatmeal in it? This soap actually has oatmeal in it. So it's a little bit scrubby. It helps with kind of acne-prone skin and oily skin, that type of thing. So really be thinking of the functional ingredients, any sort of marketing claims that you are going to want to make that fall within, of course, truth and labeling laws, and then what sort of design you want. And that is how you determine which melt and pour soap to do. And you might be asking yourself, well, Anne-Marie, can I mix and match these bases? Yes, all of these ones that look like this that come in the little blocks, you can mix and match to your heart's content. Now, if you were getting a different brand of base and you wanted to mix it with this, not so much. They will dry at different rates. And so if you're doing layers, for example, they may delaminate and peel, or if you're doing layers, they might not stick together. So keep that in mind. But if they're all the Brambleberry kind of house or studio bases, absolutely. So shout out to the ones that we're going to be doing in our project today. So shea butter is renowned for its lovely moisturizing and conditioning properties. And so this soap rinses away cleanly while still letting your skin feel beautifully moisturized. Many people have told me they don't need to use any lotion after making soap with that shea butter and using it in the shower. And honey. Honey is a natural humectant that also draws moisture to the skin. So the combination in this project that we're going to be making next is going to be using the shea melt and pour and the honey melt and pour. This is going to be one gorgeous conditioning bar with great lather. So for this project, we're going to be using, as I mentioned, the honey melt and pour soap and the shea butter melt and pour soap from Brambleberry. We're using 2 different micas. I love this combination because it gives it a little warmer look. Our main color is our rose gold mica mixed with just a tinge of this marigold mica. And then to make this a little extra skin loving, we're using rose extract, which is in fractionated coconut oil, so it makes these extra moisturizing and lovely. And finally, our fragrance is our Honeysuckle Rose, which of course has notes of honeysuckle and some rose in there, but some mid notes of cyclamen and a little bit of lemon in the top. It is really fresh. It is a gorgeous floral. It is not old and stuffy at all. I think you're going to love it. And finally, the star of the show, the Brambleberry Rose silicone mold, makes it really easy to unmold. And I think these are really nice in the hand. They fit nicely and they feel great. So let's go ahead and get started. First things first, you'll notice no safety equipment. That's because we're dealing with no lye. So you can just make this soap like you would if you were baking in your kitchen. And since it's soap, cleanup is really easy as well. Right now I'm chopping my melt and pour into kind of 1 inch by 1 inch blocks. What ends up happening is I like to melt these down in the microwave. If you're using a double boiler, this is also the case. Everything melts more cleanly and evenly if these are in kind of smaller chunks. So I like to do kind of 1 by 1-ish chunks and then melt in 30-second bursts in the microwave. The reason I do 30-second bursts is because the melt and pour actually has a lot of water and glycerin in it, as we talked about already, which means the melt and pour can actually boil. And that is the last thing we want. Boiled melt and pour ends up becoming brittle and extra hard, so it will kind of shatter or almost feel like you're breaking an icicle or something when you're cutting into it if it's been boiled. And that's because some of the water that is in the melt and pour, which is so essential for keeping this easily remeltable, ends up boiling off in the microwave. So you don't want to do that. And boiled melt and pour doesn't smell good. So 30-second bursts and just kind of monitor it. You're probably going to end up looking for about 2.5 minutes to melt each of these. One of the fun things about this project is that I'm going to do the colors in clear soap, the colors in the white soap, our shea butter, and the colors in a mixture of white and clear. So you can see exactly kind of the hue and shade discrepancies or differences based on the white, the clear, and the semi-opaque. I think that's a really fun part of the technique part of this video. So I have dispersed my rose gold into just a little bit of rubbing alcohol to make it a little bit easier to get into the soap. If you add it directly to the soap, it's not that big of a deal, but the mica can clump. So it's just 1 teaspoon of the dispersed colorant and into each. And then we're going to do 1/4 teaspoon of the dispersed marigold into both. And for our kind of dispersion rates, we did 1 teaspoon of mica to 1 tablespoon of alcohol. So you will have a little bit left over, so keep that in mind. Maybe like make sure you have a little container that has like a cap or something for it. And now we just mix these in. And so you'll be able to really see the difference between opaque and between clear. So here you can really see where that mica shines and shimmers in the clear soap, which allows light to reflect and refract into the soap. That's where you're getting that gorgeous shimmer and glimmer, right? Mica is the base for what eyeshadow is used for example, and nail polish. And then in the white soap, that opacity doesn't allow light to pass through. And so you just get that kind of normal looking color. Now it's time to add fragrance. Usage rate for melt and pour soap is between 0.4 and 0.5 ounces per pound of melt and pour soap. This is a lower usage rate than you're seeing with most cold process soaps, so keep that in mind. And that's because the soap does not undergo any kind of harsh product problems because of the sodium hydroxide. So I'm using a scale to weigh this out, and then I'm going to put in just 3 milliliters, very small amount of that extract into the melt and pour soap. It's another thing about melt and pour soap. It is perfectly balanced the way it is already. So any extra things you put into it may soften it or may make oil slicks on the surface of your soap. So when you're putting in extra oils or extra extracts, you always want to be kind of thinking minimal and not maximal, so you don't end up having weeping soap because that oil can come right out, or having soap that ends up having things that kind of stick to the bottom or anything like that. So be always testing smaller batch sizes if you're ever doing any sort of additives. So now I'm going to make kind of a medium shade. I'm gonna do just about 6 ounces of this honey-based clear, and I could love to see how it's shimmering and shining and glistening, and that honeysuckle rose smells so good. And then I'm going to do 4 ounces of the shea butter or our white soap, just to kind of make that medium shade. And that will give us some fun, different design looks and options. Now, the sweet spot for doing our swirling with melt and pour soap is about 135 with these bases. And if you're not using like the Brambleberry house base like we're using here, or the Brambleberry studio bases, what you'll find is that each one might have a very different kind of perfect swirling set point. So this works for all of the Brambleberry 13 bases that come in those nice little cubes. One thing to remember when you are working with melt and pour soap, if you are not kind of continuously stirring, you do end up getting a film on the top. Now, if I wanted to walk away, I could put some saran wrap over the top of these and that would help prevent the film. But I'm so close temperature-wise, I'm just gonna stir for a little bit. And then I will be pouring and showing you how to make those gorgeous swirls in melt and pour soap. So in order to build these, what I like to do is just a little tiny bit of our kind of darker color here, or a more vibrant color, and then just in some of our little texture details to really make sure that they stick out. And then I'm gonna spray with alcohol, do the lightest one, because I want, again, those texture details to really stick out, and just kind of keep layering and building from there. Each one is a little bit different and they look really pretty. And is this a traditional kind of swirling? No, but it does give that total effect because of this mold. We do have some other swirling melt and pour videos on this channel. So if you want to learn how to swirl in, say, a loaf mold or in an individual cavity mold, make sure to watch those as well. So now I'm just going to be building up my layers until we're totally full. Another fun thing to do is just pour these both in from one side and one side, so the two, and so they kind of really mix and swirl in an interesting way. It's also a faster way to fill up the mold. And then always be thinking rubbing alcohol. You don't want these to harden with bubbles, and the bubbles don't do anything. There's nothing wrong with the bubbles, but I do have to say, I do like a nicely finished bar that has isopropyl rubbing alcohol that's been actually sprayed to get rid of any of the bubbles. I noticed that my soap is starting to harden up here, so I'm gonna finish this project in a hurry, but if you're at home and you're like, oh, I let this harden up, you can always pop this back in the microwave for 10 to 15 seconds and get it more liquid again. So again, final touch, alcohol, and then I'm gonna let these sit for 4 hours and pop them out. So unmolding your melt and pour soap is really easy, especially if you're using Brambleberry silicone molds. You just pull gently on the sides of the mold to break the airlock, and then you flip over, and then you can push and you can see when the airlock starts to break. There we go. And never, oh, there we go. Never force these, right? Especially if you are trying to kind of cut corners and you didn't let these sit in there long enough. And some people really are like, I just put these in the fridge for 15 or 20 minutes to harden them up faster. Some people do the freezer. Anytime you are cooling melt and pour soap rapidly, you do run the risk of getting something called glycerin dew. Since there's extra glycerin that's been added to this soap, and glycerin is a humectant that draws moisture to the soap and the skin, think of like a soda can, right? When you pull it out of the fridge, think of that condensation that forms. Same thing with very cold melt and pour. So I actually like to let my melt and pour just sit on the counter for about 4 hours before I unmold it. So if you're in a really big hurry and you're like, I do not have 4 hours, okay, you can put it in the fridge or freezer for like 10 or 15 minutes, but just keep that in mind that you don't want it to go too far over because you don't want glycerin dew. And you guys, these turned out so pretty. Aren't these gorgeous? I love how it goes from kind of a darker pink to more of this white color and this mold, and the fragrance. Ooh. Hello spring, hello wildflowers, hello garden. I love it all. If you like this video, of course, give it a thumbs up. And really, I want to hear what projects you want me to make, especially if they're melt and pour or whatever, if they're body care. Tell me all about it. Follow us on all the socials. We're at Brambleberry everywhere. And until next time, everyone, happy soaping.